Hi everybody, today I'd like to talk to you about glycogen, muscle, and insulin. This is a subject that gets covered from time to time on the internet and in literature, of course, but I wanted to bring it down to earth a little bit into simpler terms for people who are trying to figure out, what carbohydrates do in the body, not only as fuel, but as for appearances and how the body allocates storage of the macronutrient known as carbohydrates. So, first of all, when carbohydrates are stored in the body, as many of you may know, it is called glycogen. Glycogen can be stored in the liver and the muscle tissue. And when you talk about adding muscle to the frame, hypertrophy, through resistance training, as I often do, what my main drive is about, increased muscle tissue equals increased glycogen storage. And for those of you who are into bodybuilding and think about the shape of bodybuilders and how the muscles are very full and round, those are muscles that are harboring a lot of glycogen intramuscularly. So simply put, the more muscle you carry on your frame, the more glycogen you can store, as well as being able to store more glycogen in your muscle, carbohydrate, by having larger muscles. Your body also becomes much more efficient at storing carbohydrate as glycogen in your muscles. Now, as we may know, the three major macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fats, the former, protein, cannot really be stored. You basically have to use it, convert it, or lose it. It can be converted at a low level to carbohydrate of some form, but that's very, very inefficient. And if it's not used as amino acids in the bloodstream for tissue regeneration, tissue growth, then it will largely be excreted through waste product. Carbohydrate and fat, however, can be stored. Fat, as we know, has a near infinite storage capacity. The human body can store an awful lot of fat. So we already know that. You can take it off the table. Carbohydrate comes up a lot because of, over the last 10 years or so, keto dieting has become in vogue, and people have viewed carbohydrates as, either unnecessary or outright bad. This is not true, of course. Carbohydrate is your prime energy source and is your most efficient energy source for producing especially muscular energy. It is extremely hard to train in the gym in an intense manner for any duration of time without a decent amount of carbohydrate stored in the muscle and in the bloodstream. You can train, on ketones and other types of fuel sources, liberated fatty acids, but it's very inefficient. The body prefers carbohydrate, as does, of course, the brain. So that's one of the reasons why you get a bit foggy thinking if you do very low carbohydrate dieting. People who lose weight rapidly on low carbohydrate dieting are losing that glycogen I was talking about. Once they've depleted the body of glycogen, they will obviously the weight of that stored glycogen, that stored carbohydrate, is gone, as well as the water associated with it. Because carbohydrate, think about the hydrate, that's water. So there's water associated with glycogen. And when you deplete the body of glycogen reserves, you lose weight, but you also lose a lot of volume in the muscle tissue itself, which gives people a very flat look. Competitive bodybuilders will often say they look flat if they haven't got enough carbohydrate storage accumulated in the muscle tissue to make it kind of round and more 3D looking. This is a very tricky balance bodybuilders play in the last week before a contest of trying to restore the proper amount of carbohydrate or even overcompensate the storage of glycogen in the muscle to give that kind of full, tight, round look. Without that carbohydrate, you tend to be very flat. And of course, the scale weight will be lower. So if regular people, again, like I say, if you're on a keto diet, you might find a quick drop in scale weight, but that's not body fat. That's going to be glycogen in the muscle and the liver and water associated with it. So keep that in mind. Now, as far as, like I say, carbohydrate storage in the muscle as glycogen is more efficient if you are well trained. The muscle simply gets more efficient at storing glycogen in the muscle tissue. So if you eat a high carbohydrate meal, you have a lot of muscle, and you are well trained, there's a much higher chance of that carbohydrate being stored in muscle tissue for future energy reserve than floating around the body looking for a place to go where insulin can put it into muscle cells or fat cells. You'll be greater efficiently channeling those carbohydrates into muscle cells if you are well trained and have a lot of muscle. This is one of the reasons why a large bodybuilder can eat, not so great foods and more of them and get away with it, because they have a larger storage capacity for carbohydrate. Until that carbohydrate capacity is reached, until that cup is full, it begins to spill over, the accumulation of body fat is not so big a concern. This is also one of the reasons why I advocate carb cycling in my diets that I do for most people, because it keeps the body sensitive so that it can store carbohydrate at a high rate and make it available when it's most needed for training, and keep it there, at a moderate level for day-to-day activities. It is a primary energy source for the body, so it's best to use it when it's needed. Store it for when it is needed, but don't store it too much. Don't overrun your reserves and end up overflowing into body fat. So I think that in a quick takeaway, I like people to remember that, carbohydrates, first of all, not evil. They are stored as glycogen in the muscle tissue. The more muscle tissue you have, the more glycogen you can store. The more you exercise with weights, resistance training, the more efficiently your body will store that carbohydrate in the muscle, reducing the chances for spillover into fat cells and other detrimental side effects, too much blood in your sugar and things like that, where insulin is required to clear out the extra sugar. So all in all, obviously, don't disregard carbohydrates as an energy source, and don't discount the need for efficient muscle tissue in the body. It's more than just looking good, feeling good, being strong. It's also a very effective way to store nutrients for future use, where it will be needed by those muscles. It could be just day-to-day movement, as it be in the gym. It could be just day-to-day. You'll feel better if you have a more optimal, more balanced carbohydrate glycogen storage in your body. And I think that it's well worth the time to put into the gym and other activities to increase that storage, and also then to think of ways to maximize utilization of that storage. And also don't discount or don't confuse the storage of that glycogen and that intramuscular water inside the muscle, intramuscular, with just body weight. Again, as I go back a moment, like keto dieting, other low carbohydrate dieting, there's an initial dump, very fast weight loss in the beginning. It's carbohydrate and water, and vice versa. You can eat a lot of carbohydrate, drink a lot of water, and it can be stored in those muscles effectively and not go to body fat if your body is well tuned and well adapted, and that comes through resistance training. So another reason to go and pursue resistance training in the most efficient ways possible, and another reason to look at your nutrition and plan it accordingly to how you live your life, in this case as a complementary form to resistance training. So that's it for now. This is written up basically as an article on my website, www.cmtphysiques.com. I'll put up a new article every Monday, discuss it in brief on Tuesday, throw up a video here on YouTube and other forums. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Write some comments below if you'd like to see more. I can dive in deeper. I can keep it more of a layman's approach. I do like to reach a lot of people and not leave other people out by being too deep in the weeds. But if some of you want to go deeper in the weeds, then I'm happy to do that as well. Anyways, thank you for your time and your attention, and I look forward to seeing you next time.